Getting in, let's give it up for Mr. Kaushik Srinivasan, Senior Vice President, Product Development, co-founder, EMudhra. My God, big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Kaushik, let me tell you, I am an EMudhra patron and loyalist for a good 3 years. So let's start off with that. We request you to kindly come on up. There's a small question waiting for you before your session begins. We request a very short, very super brief. Sir, smile. Very light question. Sir, so the question is, right, all of us are patrons of EMudhra. So our question to you is something on loyalty and patronism itself. What is your green flag? Like, what is that signal that you get to give your 100% loyalty in any relationship, be it professional or personal? What is that one thing that you look for that Mr. Kaushik can now give his 100% loyalty to it? It's a little complicated.
Yeah, very complicated.
And it was an absolute force fit of the word patron and loyal, but that is the question, sir. What is that you look for?
In what context?
Anything. It could be personal life, it could be professional life. When does Mr. Kaushik give his loyalty to, let's say, an organization or any relationship? Anything.
See, I'm super passionate about what I do, right? So whatever interests me, I give it 100%. So it's just something, there's a vibe, there's a click, and then you go after it, right? And then you give it your complete 100%. So
That's absolutely amazing. So passion and interest is what you seek when you have to give 100% loyalty, and this is exactly what you're getting from our lovely audience members. So stage is all yours, sir. Thank you so much. A little philosophical question, but I liked how you said interest. So a very interesting session awaits you, ladies and gentlemen. Stage is all yours, sir. That's your clicker.
good morning, everybody, and thank you for taking the time out to be here. And I want to thank 𝐄𝐝𝐢𝐈 again for organizing this conference and giving us the opportunity to sort of talk about EMudhra and the role that we play in essentially enabling paperless transformation in the country. And we've been doing it for a number of years. So what I would like to do is just walk you through our journey to talk about who we are, what we've been doing in the country as a certifying authority. Some of you may have used our services or products in the past for basically digital signatures. But there are a lot of interesting developments that have happened in the country in the context of digital India, which many of you will be aware of, probably using some of those solutions. But what we've tried to do is put all of those pieces together to offer some comprehensive solution, particularly for the banking and financial services industry, and how that can be used by organizations to go completely digital and paperless. And finally, how you can get started with some of these products, and essentially how you can sort of take them to the next level as far as your end-to-end interaction with customers are concerned. So a little bit about who we are. So we've been a certifying authority for the last 14 years. We are licensed by the Controller of Certifying Authorities, Ministry of IT, to issue digital signature certificates in the country. So many of you may have used our products to basically file taxes or GST returns or director filings with the MCA portal, or for various other use cases with tendering, etc. But over time, we've grown. We've developed a number of solutions around the identity, authentication, and e-signature workflow space. We are recognized by Gartner as a leader in the space. We are a full-service vendor as far as paperless transformation is concerned. We are also a public CA, so we can issue SSL certificates. We are the only provider out of the country to have this full range of recognition and capability from all of these different browsers and Adobe. In India, we are a market leader in digital signatures. We have about 37.9% market share. This is as per a Frost & Sullivan report that was recently conducted. And then we are the only provider, again, to offer on-prem private cloud services, because we do realize regulated industries need data confidentiality, so how do you sort of cater to that? And in India, we serve 10 out of all the banks, all the top banks, basically a lot of automotive companies, and in ET 500, 19 out of the top 20 firms use our solutions, right? So we've, over time, essentially developed this leadership position in digital trust, digital security, and paperless transformation. And very recently, we also got listed on BSE and NSE. So we're a listed company in India. So again, if you realize, what's happening around the world, many countries are sort of trying to emulate the model that we built as part of the Digital India stack, which is essentially Aadhaar, eSign, and then the UPI payment infrastructure. And what we've tried to do is build this digital trust backbone in many countries. So global organizations that typically have signing requirements across multiple jurisdictions. How do we cater to them? So the green dots are basically the regions that we are present, either directly as a certifying authority, and the orange dots are countries that typically accept a slightly simpler form of electronic signature. Why this is relevant is many organizations and many people sitting here have presence overseas, and typically you may have signing requirements across multiple jurisdictions. So how can you sort of look at this map and see how we are able to cover you in terms of the signing requirements in various global jurisdictions, and that's what we try and do to all our global customers. And more specifically in India, we've been with the banking sector for the last 10 to 12 years, right from 2012 when digital signatures got adopted. First customer was State Bank, then a whole bunch of other banks sort of jumped the bandwagon. Then they all started adopting eSign, which was launched as a concept as part of the Digital India mission in 2015. And then more recently, several other developments. The NACH mandates got completely paperless. Then we also served IDRBT, which is basically running on our certificate platform to issue certificates to the banking officials for authorizing interbank payments and settlements. And more recently, we've been seeing sort of a wave in digital transformation with a number of developments that banks are being particularly progressive and financial institutions are being particularly progressive in adopting eSign-based sort of paperless transformation. But again, one observation is this is not really being looked at as an enterprise-wide initiative. It is being done in various specific use cases, the most popular one, of course, being retail lending, where a number of documents today are getting signed completely electronically, even loan fulfillments completely happening electronically. But there's so much more potential that there is in the BFSI space that can be sort of addressed, and companies can go fully paperless with the KYC solutions available with our eSign platform and some of the other things that I will talk about. So these are some of the customers we serve. Of course, we serve a lot more, but these are some of the logos where we have consent. So across the board, e-signature is sort of a horizontal commodity. So if you take any enterprise, you do have multiple sort of stakeholders. That's the employees, customers, vendors. All of these require some kind of paper-based interaction for contract signing, for onboarding, for various kinds of documentation. And this gets more complex when we look at the financial services industry. We did an assessment for a large bank. There's at least 280 different types of forms that a person has to fill, be it retail banking, corporate banking, wealth customer, etc. And all of these require a signature, and over time these can go fully digital and paperless with the digital signature landscape. E-signature that way is sort of across the board. It can be used anywhere, plugged in quite easily into any of your existing workflow processes, and we've got ready solutions that help you sort of make that transition from the paper world to a fully digital and sort of a paperless world. So where are we today in terms of the landscape in India? And if you see, these are some very, very interesting developments that have happened over the last 2 to 3 years. One, of course, eSign was launched almost 6-7 years back, and we were the first eSign service providers in the country. eSign actually is a type of digital signature which is not in the token. So before eSign, everything, the digital signature certificate was issued in a crypto device, which looks like a USB pen drive, but it's got secure properties, and there you needed to sign. Whereas with eSign, you don't need a token. All you need is an Aadhaar number or a PAN card. You can enroll, start signing documents on the fly, and it is legally valid and non-repudiable as per the Information Technology Act in the country, right? So it gives you full legal sanctity, legal non-repudiability when you want to sign documents. They stand the test of court, whenever there is a dispute and you need to present the digital document in court of law. The other very interesting development is eStamping. So far, stamp papers in the country were largely physical, and stamp, as you may know, is a state subject. So each state has a different stamp act, and basis that there is stamping regulations, guidelines, and stamp vendors that sort of operate, stockholding being, of course, a larger one. But NESL, now this entity which has been constituted under the sort of the ambit of the whole bankruptcy code, essentially offers eStamping services across 26 states, where you can basically generate stamp papers via API calls, and the stamp will get affixed on a document which can then be electronically signed, and then the whole workflow can be digital. So no more there is a requirement to procure or sort of buy physical stamp papers from stamp vendors. If you connect into NESL, that problem is sort of solved, where stamp papers themselves can be fully digitized and fully made available via API. The third, again, very key development is the account aggregator framework, which again is in the works. A lot of public sector and private sector banks are basically connecting into this framework, which allows essentially any kind of banking data over a period of time to be made structured and be shareable with the consent of the customer. And that essentially means now you can sort of build a full pipeline of a workflow which consists of any data that you need from a customer, from a bank, and then attach the stamp paper, get it digitally signed, and then move it into your core system. So now if you sort of think back as to what was happening or what's currently happening maybe 5-7 years back, or even today, all of this is on paper. There are disparate pieces, so you need to sort of get physical copies of the bank statements, then you need to get a stamp paper from a stamp vendor, then you need to basically get physical signatures from different parties. All of them could be in different parts of the country. Essentially, any document today that needs to complete this full life cycle is probably a 15-day process at minimum, much more in the case of certain complex signing scenarios. But what this combined framework does is sort of crash it to a few minutes, right? So we are really looking at certain transformations that are going to happen in the country. And I just want to highlight to all of you the potential that exists by integrating all of these different pieces to make all of your customers' experience way more simpler, and the digital journeys that you're likely to build sort of way more, sort of easier for customers to adopt, and not to mention the benefits of cost saving or, turnaround times or compliance errors that get minimized, right? So there's huge potential in the stack that's being presented in front of you. Today, unfortunately, these are being looked at in silos. So I would really see if, there's an enterprise-wide initiatives at your organizations that can be looked at to adopt all of these different pieces of technology to make it, a much more seamless journey for the customer. So coming to the types of eSign, so all of you may have used Aadhaar-based eSign because that's the most popular form of eSign for signing documents whenever you open a broking account, either with any of the top broking houses. Today they ask you to sign at the end of the day the 3-in-1 accounts, and that gets eSign. But there are certain cases where you may need other types of eSign, which is also equally permitted under law. So some cases the mobile number is not mapped to your Aadhaar identity, in which case you can use your PAN card also to enroll and then sign documents. There is also a case where you may need the binding of the organization along with the individual, because Aadhaar eSign is clearly an individual eSign. So there we have the ability to verify the GST number and then do organizational binding and organizational eSign. The fourth very interesting one is bank KYC based eSign. The regulator has allowed bank KYC to be used to actually e-sign documents dynamically on the fly. So this can apply to any bank who wants their customers to sign documents once they've already become a customer of the bank. And the last one is even in the context of foreign individuals that are signing in the Indian jurisdiction, we can do foreign KYC through passport verification and basically allow them to sign. So the reason I'm saying all of this is this pretty much covers most of the use cases, or in fact all of the use cases from a signing requirement standpoint in financial services context, both domestic, foreign. Only thing is the jurisdiction has to be sort of the Indian jurisdiction, but in any cases, given that all of us are sort of based in India, that may be a default premise with which any contract or agreement gets signed. So today we've got a lot of flexibility. Earlier, while we had Aadhaar eSign, now there's a lot more that can be done to essentially power any kind of use cases, both in terms of domestic account opening or non-resident account opening or any remittances that have to be collected. Because I've been meeting with banks, and what I hear is there is a number of outbound verification checks that banks tend to do. They do accept email instruction, but then a callback goes to the customer, the OTP needs to get entered. So there's different pieces of sort of checks and balances banks have put. A lot of them can be minimized by allowing e-signatures and e-sign of documents which are sort of legally recognized under the country's Information Technology Act. So what we've done is essentially put all of these different pieces together into a comprehensive e-signature workflow management platform called eMSigner, which is widely adopted in banking, financial services, private sector. We do extensive work both in India and abroad with this platform. It's a very simple platform, but again has very complex capabilities to tackle a number of scenarios. It supports on the left-hand side, as you can see, all different types of e-signatures. In India, in global context, wherever we are a certifying authority or wherever we partnered with other certifying authorities. At the core, it has integration into e-signing, e-stamping, ability to recognize content on documents, various reporting capabilities, etc. And then we have the flexibility of offering it on cloud, as in private cloud, or on-premise if you're sort of running your own data center. And then there's an extensive set of connectors that allow you to connect into various core systems of your institution. And there are multiple models, and we've also got predefined connectors out of the box with some of the leading systems that organizations tend to use. This includes even core banking systems like Temenos, Finacle, banks, with ERP, SAP, Oracle, CRM, Salesforce, DMS systems, HRMS. And so basically any touch point that you're likely to have with your customer, with your vendor, with your employee, with some of the leading systems that may already be used, all those touch points are already covered. So it's a pretty seamless, sort of adoption for the organizations to get started and then move into a completely paperless journey. And this system, again, widely used, and we've got a specific version for banking that also caters to a number of specific requirements that I'll talk about. But essentially, this is what we are really sort of driving to the market, is from paper to paperless. We are sort of making it easy through a ready solution that's on offer. So just want to highlight a little bit about one of the case studies that we did in the Middle East. Is actually for First Abu Dhabi Bank. The reason I'm doing this case study is they looked at this whole problem as an enterprise-wide C-level initiative to go completely paperless, and they were fully on paper. This was right in the middle of COVID. It literally stopped their operations because they were accepting everything as signed paper that needed to come physically into their relationship management teams or branch or whatever touch points they have. And then because that sort of really stopped it, it caught the attention of the CEO and then was driven as a C-level mandate. We did, of course, a phase-wise implementation. The first phase was really a standalone implementation of the system that allowed both customers to originate documents, send it into bank, and the bank to originate documents, send it outward to customers to get it signed. So both models are possible. We integrated into the UAE's digital ID platform called UAE Pass, which also has a touch point with the Emirates ID infrastructure. And then the customer portal then over time behaved like a digital branch, right? So any form that you would typically sign, fill it, give it at the branch can now be submitted online via this platform. And the interesting thing is, because we know the type of document, type of form, instead of the form moving through various levels of checking through the branch operations, central operations, it directly got pushed into the back office operational teams based on the type of form, essentially cutting out any of the middle layers. The forms were validated, so you didn't have to do various rechecks and balances in terms of identifying if there are data mismatch, etc. And then we also introduced a concept called teams, because we realized there are multiple back office teams that typically work on a similar case if it's a large contract or an escrow agreement or a facility letter. So compliance, risk, ops, all the teams were adopted on the system, and they can all look at the same case at the same time. So this was sort of phase one, which took about, the system went live in about 3 weeks, but then a lot of changes were done to accommodate their need. Phase 2 was 6 months, so many other departments sort of came on the platform. Today we have almost 14 departments of the bank fully on the platform for both customer to bank and bank to customer interactions. We also had channel onboarding automation for corporate banking, maintenance requests, cash related sort of services, custody, trade finance documentation were digital, and now integrated into their core banking for even straight through processing without even the BPMS layer in the middle, right? And then finally the mobile app rollout. So all in all, it was a completely enterprise-wide kind of rollout, where it's a comprehensive solution that does allow both the bank to send documents to customer, get it signed, and from the customer to push it with a whole bunch of straight-through processing capabilities that were built in. So the EM Signer product for banking has a number of specific capabilities for, as I said, both inbound and outbound workflows. There's a lot of authentication at various levels, maker, checker, compliance controls, etc. Audit trails are available in the system, so every activity that you do, be it a login, be it a document viewing or a signing event, is fully captured in the system. The whole form center can be configured, so if you have 400 forms, 300 forms, 500 forms, everything can be configured, made fillable, so people can sort of fill. And the interesting thing in a digitally signed workflow is the identity, data, and the document move in a single seamless workflow. So you've got the identity, which you can verify from the certificate, the data can be extracted, pushed to your core system, and the signed document is available for you from an audit trail perspective. So what this really did is, of course, apart from the features, the whole focus is from an ESG standpoint, which is becoming pretty big. Companies are getting scored based on ESG parameters, based on which investors are taking decisions. So a system like this literally is at the heart of both the E and G. From an environmental standpoint, you're significantly reducing carbon footprint by eliminating paper. And from a governance standpoint, everything is digitally signed, non-tamperable, audit trails are there. So at any point, any auditor wants to look at anything, they have full accessibility as to what happened with that whole case or whole document, right? And that's really the benefit of adopting digital signatures, is everything is identity backed, fully traceable, non-tamperable. So how we've been going about positioning this, as I said, we are not positioning ourselves as a general purpose contracting platform as some of the others may be doing. We are doing industry specific focus and building out capabilities that are required by that industry. Comprehensive audit trails are there, extensive set of APIs are available for connecting various systems. It can get up and running as a standalone system in weeks, and we're the only vendor to support both on-prem private clouds, and we are also Gartner recognized. And what we've been doing at global level is, of course, to get ourselves recognized. So Gartner, IDC, Frost & Sullivan recognized. Huge focus on quality and security. We've got all the relevant certifications from a security standpoint, giving any organization the comfort from a data privacy, data confidentiality standpoint. And we also drive a lot of thought leadership, because what we've been doing in India is a role model that many other countries are looking to emulate. So on the Cloud Signature Consortium, which is a European body, we are a board member. The Asia PKI Consortium, which is the body for Asia digital signature adoption, we are the chairman. So India has done a lot, and we want to essentially take that model to the rest of the world. So these are various other use cases. Essentially everything involves paper, everything involves signatures, everything involves some other workflow, onboarding, lending, contract management, re-KYC requests, credit card processing. So this is just a sample of some of the use cases. Of course, many of you may be experts. You may know what are the other touch points where signatures are required, and pretty much everything can be now eSign with Aadhaar or some of the other methodologies that I sort of highlighted, and integrated with various other capabilities of eStamping and the account aggregator framework. So how can you get started? So first, I think given it's sort of ripe from a time perspective, everybody is going digital. The regulators are very proactive in helping the adoption of digital technology. So one is to see if you can start accepting eSign documents, because eSign documents are basically PDFs with signatures. They can be sent via web portals, they can be sent via email, possibly even WhatsApp. So it's channel agnostic. So at least as a starting point, you can ask your customers to digitally send documents. And we've got a website where people can go buy subscription plans, and it allows unlimited signatures for a specific duration that you can start accepting by any channel that you're currently interacting with your customers. Second, if you've got a high impact use case like lending, like any other documentation which involves ton of paper, and you've got an existing system, maybe a loan origination system, integrate eSign capabilities into that. It's fairly straightforward. We've got ready APIs, and then there's a process that helps you get onboarded in pretty much a few days. And third, there will be a number of use cases which you may not have an existing system but still require customers to send paper, or still require internal members to sign and send paper out. For those, we've got eMSigner, which is an end-to-end e-signature workflow automation platform that allows both the bank or financial institution or any other broking house to send document outward or sort of collect document inward, right? So, yeah. So I think I've run out of time, but this also happens to be my last slide. So thank you so much for patiently listening. We have a few minutes for Q&A. Okay. Yeah, I think anyway, our stall is outside, so happy to interact with you in case you have any questions. Thank you.